Good afternoon. Thank you, Mario. We see you on screen. And before we begin this meeting, we acknowledge that we're in the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe peoples in the Williams and Huron-Robinson Treaties area. We recognize the long history of First Nations and Métis people on this land and show respect to them today. We acknowledge our neighbors, the Wata Mohawks, and the First Nations of Moose Deer, Shawniga, Wasauksing, Magnetawan, Henley Inlet, Nipissing, and the Dokies. We look to each other, the elders of both nations, as a source of inspiration, guidance, and the living memory of our communities. We, like all peoples, must accept that we are stewards of creation and that the land comes to us with a responsibility where no hierarchy exists. All life is sacred on earth, in the waters, and in the skies. And as settlers, we're grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all of the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. So I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby convene this special meeting of council at 2:30 p.m. in order to consider the following matter: the Township of Seguin 2024 budget. Could I have a motion, Gail? And a seconder, Greg. All in favor? Thank you. Is there any pecuniary interest or general nature thereof to be revealed? No. And we move on. So that I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby approve a 3% cost of living adjustment, otherwise known as COLA, to the salary grid and all staff not on the salary grid, and that the COLA also be applied to council and volunteer firefighter honorariums, said COLA to be effective January 1, 2024. A mover? Gail and Terry. All in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the 2024 operating and capital budgets in principle as per the recommendation of staff number TR 2023-010, copy attached as Schedule A to this resolution. And that's what you received last week via email. Could I have a mover? Kim and Greg. Is there any discussion, questions? Councillor Collins?
Thank you. Sorry. The staff in category 4, have they been upgraded, as we said back in the fall? Because it seems like everybody else has, but I haven't seen that actually listed in any way, shape, or form.
The short answer is yes. Effective January 1, 2024.
Okay, so it hasn't been affected yet. It'll be okay in the new year.
Okay. Yeah, it's part of the 2024 budget. So it starts January 1.
Yeah.
Some of them have, I believe.
Some already did.
But some of them have had meetings, and I believe the rest of the meetings will be imminent.
Further to what I want to discuss is the increase to the West Perry Sound Museum. That needs to be on the table. It hasn't been approved yet. We were waiting for Councillor Adams to come back to council after he had a meeting with the director of the museum, and we still haven't heard that yet. So I'd like to hear what happened during that meeting.
I had a meeting with Danine, and the 0.04% is taken off the table. She's going to work. She's going to do a business plan for us. She's going to need a little bit of time. She asked if she could have a little bit of time, and she's going to involve 2 other members of the board to do the business plan with her, who are counselors. We talked about a few things she could do around there. And one of them is the kitchen that she's gonna redo for another boardroom meeting. And I'm gonna be working with her now with doing all her RSPs, tenders and stuff like that for her, so she can get them done every year. And that's what we talked
Yeah.
about.
It's just that,
She asked if she could have a little time for the business plan.
well,
And I said
well,
she could.
then I'm saying that we stick with our original 17.5 at this time. And not give them the raise until we actually see what business plan they're going to be enacting. Right now, I'm a little bit concerned, to be honest with you, all right? Simply because we've had two counselors on that board that have quit for whatever their reasons are. And that sends up a multitude of red flags as far as I'm concerned. Is it being run right? I don't know. I don't know where their standing is because it is a board and they don't have to give us any financial records where they're standing. But the big flag went up when they tried to tie in their grants to our provincial land assessment value. That was unheard of.
Yeah.
So why would they even want to consider doing something like that? Adding 15% a year to the grant, and then for the next 5 years, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
So there are problems, and I'm saying before we give them their money, that we want to see a business plan.
I can get you all their financial plans. I can send that every time I go to a meeting if you want the breakdown.
Well, before they get into money, I would really like to see the business plan that they're going to move ahead with.
Okay, I'm going to ask our CAO to speak, and then I see your hand up, Mario, and Greg has his hand up too. So go ahead, Jason.
Thank you, Worship, members of council. I would put a recommendation to you that perhaps what maybe is appropriate at this point in time is, well, the 22.5 is embedded within the budget. It doesn't mean it all has to be allocated to them on day one. Perhaps the museum can receive 50% or a number that council feels is appropriate, so that their lights can continue to be turned on and business can run as usual. And the remaining allocation can be made once that business plan is finalized and presented to council and is acceptable to council.
Okay, that's a recommendation on the table, and I see your hand up, Mario. Mario, do you have a comment?
Yes, thank you. I was having a problem with my mute button. Yeah, in general, I'm a little disappointed. I hoped we could get the total number for the increase down just a little bit more. There are two questions I have. The first would be, I looked in the Rosso Community Hall we're talking almost $700,000 to do for maintenance. And I don't have an issue with that figure, but what I have an issue with is it doesn't look like all of the money is coming out of the reserve. There's almost $2 million in the reserve, and why wouldn't the total 700,000 be taken out of the reserve?
Michelle, can you respond to that? Because I think the reserve has a special way we can spend it.
Yeah, the reserve actually is funding 426,000 of the hall. The other 265,000, we're hoping that we can still get grants. If we can't get grants and that money does get allocated, then it will come out of the reserve. So there's nothing coming out of any of the other reserves. It would all be coming out of the Rosso Memorial Hall Reserve.
So in that case, why are we showing the money coming out at this point in time? Because that means we have to increase taxes. If we're making a statement right now that it's going to all come out, couldn't the extra 265,000 be shown as initially at this point in time as coming out of the reserves, and then hopefully we could get the grants, as you say?
Yeah, there's no effect on taxes. It's being shown as a grant. If we don't get the grant, that doesn't get spent. Depending on what the plan is that council has for the hall, it will either come out of the reserve or it will come from a grant, but it will not come out of taxes.
So that hasn't contributed at all to the tax?
No,
Oh, okay. All right. Well, it's interesting. Then the second question I had, just in general, I mean, I looked at some of the information that was supplied at the last meeting by the clerk for me. And what I was wondering is all of the vehicles that are coming out this year, seems like a lot of vehicles are coming out. And I'm just wondering if, I mean, there might be the odd one, like the pumper truck that I think is legislated. You have to have it at a certain age and so on. But, you know, some of the half tons and other vehicles like that, could we not extend one more year for the service period? It's just like, there's just so many coming out this year, and that's adding, you know, to the increase in tax.
I know Tom has looked at his fleet in great detail. He did have more vehicles in his initial budget, and we have pushed those out. These are the vehicles that, in the opinion of the Director of Public Works, need to be replaced this year.
Okay, those are my questions for at this point in time.
Thank you. Greg, you have a question?
Mine's very short because Jason said the same thing I was going to say, that we're here to approve the budget. I think that the 22.5 is embedded in the budget, but Ken is working to try to get accountability from the museum. It may be at the end of the day that, you know, when it comes back to council for an increase, that we just have the money in there. We don't commit to an increase in the funding. And I'm sure that, you know, either it may very well with a business case justify sending the money there, or it may be that we decide to send the money to the Seguin Museum to upgrade it. So that was where I was going with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, and I think the key, we have asked for business plans before, and I think what we need to see from the library is some revenue generation other than just asking for money.
Yeah, the museum.
The museum. Yeah, because their revenues seem to be just maybe please have instead of we're going to generate money.
Yes, yes. Thank you
ahead,
for
Ted.
that, Mayor. Because I did visit the museum last week, and yeah, I think they need some work to attract visitors to the museum. I could remember, Michelle, back in the day, prior to that train set coming in, I think, didn't we increase our budget by probably 50% to help them with the purchase of that train set in the museum?
There was a special ask for the train set, yes.
Yeah, and we never did go back to our original amount. We left that special price in there as a grant year after year after year because now it's up to 17.5.
Mm.
And when you look at all the other discretionary grants that we provide to other boards and other committees, that's the highest. That's the biggest one. Is for their museum. There's not one bigger. That's the discretionary grants I'm talking about. Isn't that right?
It's one of our biggest, yes.
Yeah. All right. So we got to look at that. That's
Okay, we've got Greg and then Ken.
I'll be very short. This is really not a question about the budget being presented today, but a number of these grants are coming, and they're historical grants that appear to just be rollovers from year to year. Would it be reasonable to ask you to ask staff for a history of them, and so that we can evaluate them on a proper basis, as opposed to budget process comes up, we gave this group or this institution $10,000 for the last 10 years, or we've given, because these asks are becoming greater, the numbers are becoming bigger, And if we could have almost a historical report on them so that we can reevaluate them and reassess them to see if there's something that we just automatically roll over, or if we have to be, put more discretion into what we're giving away. Thank you.
Councillor Getty, I think it's a reasonable request and we'd be happy to undertake that work and bring it back to council in the new year.
And Ken?
Yes, I have a meeting with, with the museum on Thursday night, and I'm gonna bring it with Nadine in front of the whole board. And we're gonna go over everything with the board. And we will bring in Nadine's budget, her yearly budget and stuff like that, so you'll have all that information. We might not get it till after New Year's.
But it's the business plan too.
Pardon me?
It's the business plan, not.
No, I understand that. I understand that. That's what
Bring
I
in
said.
the
We're
new-
gonna go in front of the whole board.
Yeah.
And we're gonna talk about all that. And like I said, they're gonna get like a little committee together to do the budget, or the business plan.
Well, let's see what, yeah, well, let's see
Okay.
what comes back.
Like, I don't mind, like, if that's what council wants to do it, that's fine with me. And give the rest later, that's fine.
Well, let's see what comes out of Thursday in a couple weeks. Mario? You have another comment?
Yes, thank you. Last week I had an interview with a consulting company with respect to visioning and the minister's zoning order. And in the length of our discussions, it was mentioned that they had talked with staff as well. And I'm just wondering, how much money is budgeted for things related to the minister's zoning order this year? There's nothing really that stands out as an item, but it would be interesting to know because, you know, my initial reaction, which I didn't say to the consultant, but was that really it's up to the developer to provide a vision. We can then assess it to see how it conforms with the township vision. But anyway, that's a different issue. But I just wondered how much money are we planning on spending on the minister's zoning order lands that wouldn't be spent by a developer at this point in time? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brzezinski. There's very, very little dollars being spent on the minister's zoning order from the visioning perspective, from anything that's not recoverable through future development charges. We're working through the development charges background study right now and anticipate coming back to council in the new year with that package ready for council consideration. But to your point, development pays for development, and the developers are ultimately responsible for all costs associated with the vision and anything else. The one piece that we're working with the developer, the planning consultant, et cetera, right now, without getting into a great amount of detail, is around ensuring that while the developers have a vision for their parcel of land, it has to also match the neighboring parcels of land. It has to be some flow through, and that's why the high level exercise that you participated in last week is in place. Again, very little dollars though are being spent, if any, that isn't recoverable.
Thank you. Just to kind of bring us back, we have a budget on the table. It has the full 22.5 for the library, but I personally would like to suggest that we give staff direction to hold back 50% of it until we as a council are happy with their business plan and revenue generation. You can tell them Thursday night that we allocated their ask, but that we believe we need the other piece of where they're going to get the money in future. And I think partly in line with what Greg said, yeah, we need to see a history of how the numbers crept up, you know, for the train. I believe it was for glass partitions for the train, and then it hasn't been taken out and that kind of thing. For all of our bodies that we give money to, but I think seeing their business plan and how they plan to get away from just asking for money for everybody, not just the museum, would be a good exercise going into the budget years. So If people are comfortable, is it enough to just have staff direction to hold back 50%, but to approve the budget as it's in front of us now? Are we comfortable with that? So we have a budget in front of us, and it was moved by Ken and seconded by Greg. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. And I have a motion that bylaw number 2023-134, being a bylaw to establish an asset management capital reserve fund for the corporation of the Township of Seguin, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion? Terry and Ted? And you'll recall that we are now in this budget collecting the 1%, 1.5% to start this asset management. And as surpluses come up, that's where they'll go at the end of any given year. So that's what we're establishing here. Is there any comments or questions?
To me, yes,
Sorry.
yes, to me, Mayor, that is the most prudent decision that this council has made for the 2024 budget.
Thank you. All in favor? It's carried again unanimously. And I have a motion that bylaw number 2023-135, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of meetings of council, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Can I have a motion? Terry and Gail. All in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn this special meeting of council at 2:50 p.m. to meet again on Monday, January 15th, or at the call of the mayor. Could I have a motion? Greg and Ken. All in favor? Thank you. And I would ask Councillor Getty if you will sit in the chair on the 15th. No, I'll be on Zoom. Will you accept? Okay, thank you. And I think we have Mary